Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with financial coach Betsy Westcott. Betsy is the founder of the Inner Money Game, a financial coaching platform helping individuals and couples to live a financially free and secure life that allows them to experience true wealth. Betsy has worked in both large financial institutions and some of Australia's most exciting fintech, including NAB, ANZ, Macquarie, Ninja Bank, and Future U. She's qualified as a financial advisor, mortgage broker, and certified money coach. In this week's episode, we talk about the BS that comes with financial advice, spending more than you earn, the consumerism trap, being risk averse, being emotional with money, boring investments, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Betsy Westcott. No. Guys, we spoke about this. Westcott. You'd think I didn't know her and you'd think she wasn't my money coach, but I actually do. Betsy Westcott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And it's because we always use first names because we're familiar with each other like that.
Do you have a nickname?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some I can't include on the podcast, but Betty is probably the most PG one. Yeah.
Yeah. What does your mum call you?
Betty Boop.
Really?
Booper. Used to get Booper a lot.
Would Betty Poop go down well as like a 15, 16-year-old teenager, or did you ask her not to say that in front of your friends?
No, I was cool with it. Like, yeah, I don't really care what anyone thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's like mum. Actually, my real nickname from mum that she uses more often is Koala Lou. Completely unrelated to my name. But after a book I loved reading when I was a kid. So, yeah.
It'd almost be un-Australian to not have a nickname, wouldn't it?
I think so. It's a sign of endearment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it strange when people get upset about nicknames. I mean, we do have a friend whose nickname is Moisty and he hates it. And I understand why.
That's a stitch up.
Fair. But generally speaking, if you've got a nickname, if I betroth you a nickname, then that means that you're all right.
It's almost like there's an inclusivity, like we're friends when there's a nickname.
Yeah, and I think that's cross-cultural. I know it's quite profound in the Australian culture. I spent a little bit of time living in Poland, of all places, when I was about 18 years old, and everyone's name had like a cutesy nickname, and it was like a big thing there as well. So yeah. I think it's just a familiarity, a term of endearment. So I think they're great things. What's yours, Blake?
I've got a few.
Yeah?
I've got one that I had my whole upbringing, which was Wazza, which is off the back of Worrall. Mm-hmm. And then
Aussie.
Very Aussie. BWT is a real obvious one.
Of course. Yeah.
To go with my initials. And then B-Dub became a more recent one, which is
I say that. I get B-Dub.
B-Dub. Yeah. I like that one.
B-Dub. Yeah. That's a fun one. Kind of sounds like you got some street cred as well, which, as a 30-something-year-old, you don't really get that much these days.
Don't.
So let's roll
Some
with it.
people probably think I can like dance, like hip-hop style with B-Dub, but I can't. Guys, we are not here to talk about nicknames, surprisingly. We are actually here to talk about money. And I have been so fortunate to have Betsy help both Shani and I with money. And I love the way she does money, which is quite rare, I reckon. So we're going to speak about that at some stage. But Betsy, what we were meant to do 5 minutes ago is introduce you. So can you give the listeners a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what has got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I can. Okay, let's go. So Betsy Westcott, I'm a financial wellness coach. And so what that means is that I help people understand why they do what they do with money and transform that in a way that makes it really easy for them to achieve financial well-being. And then I also help them build their confidence and capability around money. So rather than having a financial advisor who catches fish for you, I teach you how to fish when it comes to money so that you can keep catching fish and eating well and living well for the rest of your life. I never meant to be in finance, although I've been in this field for 15 years across running bank branches to private banking to starting brand new banks and fintech financial wellness apps. And through all of that, what I realized I love the most is one-on-one helping people go from feeling fearful, guilty, and shameful around money to feeling empowered, excited, and really confident. And to help them, to use some of your words, which I always use actually, is to live life by design. And I think that's why we have such a good rapport, because we're so passionate about helping people live life by design, because that's the ultimate goal.
Someone who was a little bit nervous about getting their bio done in 90 seconds, I reckon you did a pretty good job.
Thanks, mate.
This continues to blow my mind, and I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes that aren't of value to people today. But it continues to blow my mind that we have this big topic, money today. Sex is another one that I find really interesting around this type of thing.
Equally
and yet,
taboo.
Very taboo. And yet people don't talk about it. People, generally speaking, don't understand the human and the psychology component about it. And that was what led me to you, because I was like, I'm not going to speak to another financial advisor or accountant who tells me to save $3.40 a day for my coffee. Like, I'm sick of that conversation. I don't have coffee, but that type of conversation. And the first chat that we had, I was like, fuck, she gets it. Like, the human element of money. And as someone who's previously been bankrupt and carries a lot of shame with that, and you use the term shame in there, it must be very common for people to come to you with stories, with shame, with guilt, with judgment, with fear. Like, what would be the most common human component or the most common human challenge you see when people come to you with money issues?
Ooh, there's lots of common threads. So shame is a big one. I should be better at this. I should have achieved more by this age. I'm not keeping up with what I see on social media or what my friends are doing. I don't know where to start. I've made mistakes in the past, and I feel like I'm behind. So that's a narrative I see a lot. I also see a lot of overwhelm, because I think financial services probably haven't done a lot of favors for consumers in the way that they talk about money. It's very jargon filled, and it suits financial services for it to be that way, so that we, the financial services providers, sound super smart and you need our help and you can't do it without us, which is actually BS. Like, don't get me wrong, there is absolute value in good quality financial advice and accessing good quality financial products. Absolutely. However, the narrative that you need some special degree and be doing a fancy job in a big office, wearing a suit to gain access to this club, to be good with money, is total BS. If you got through grade 5 math, you have all the smarts within you to understand how to make money, how to keep money, and how to grow money, because they're the 3 things you need to master: make, keep, and grow money in order to create financial freedom.
I love that you said that. And I tend to think that across the board, in whatever professional skill set that you have, that if you can take the terminology and the jargon and you can simplify it for the consumer, you'll make people really happy. Like, Shani and I spoke to another person, I'm trying to think if it was pre or post you, but it was in a different field when it came to finance. And Shani will tell you this story probably a little bit more gnarly than me, but I was ready to like punch on after 5 minutes, because I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, I left the conversation more confused than I started it. And that, I'm never speaking to that person ever again.
And I was raging.
I was fucking raging. And as someone who's had their money stuff previously, I'm like, mate, you are not helping my life at all. And I obviously have really appreciated the work that you've done with us, and also in more recent times read The Psychology of Money and Morgan Housel. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
That's right.
Like, are you two the only two? Oh, I don't mind Ramit Sethi, actually. I feel like you three are the only people on this fucking planet who are simplifying money and bringing a human component to it. Is that true?
Well, look, I am thrilled to be in such good company. I think there has been a shift. You know, the Barefoot Investor is another Australian who's really good at contextualizing money, making it something that's tangible, easy to understand, organizes it and explains it in a way that's coherent. Because one of the big problems is that we don't get educated about money. It's really up to our parents to teach us, or for us to go out and find that information. So it's like we all get keys to this car because money is something we all have access to and we all need to access in order to, you know, get food, shelter, all those sorts of things. But we're given zero driving lessons. And some of us might just be naturally good at driving, and others of us are bunny hopping and swerving and having prangs. So I think when you find someone who can, you know, coherently explain things and build from the foundations of your mindset, understanding your goals, understanding what money's coming in and going out, and then building the skills to use your money to create wealth, whether that's through investing and property ownership or whatever your strategy might be, it's like a curtain gets lifted, or it's like the blur is, you know, you've got your glasses on finally and you can see clearly and you realize this stuff isn't as complicated as I was led to believe. And it becomes really exciting because you're like, wow, I have so much power. I have so much agency. And it's just doing very simple things consistently well that leads to wealth creation. Because if you've got the right money habits and attitudes, wealth is inevitable. You don't need a huge salary. You don't need some, you know, business to skyrocket and some huge wealth event. You can have a very modest salary and you've just got good habits and you invest regularly in that, wealth is inevitable, which is nice.
Oh, you could stop the podcast there and everyone would feel better about money. Based on what you've seen personally and well, maybe more personally, because professionally there's obviously a proactive step for someone to come and work with you. But when you think about your life, your upbringing, and just general conversations, if you were to throw like a random number out there of people who feel really confident and competent when it comes to money, and those that like feel overwhelmed, stressed, find themselves in avoidant patterns, like where would that sit? How many people do you think are really confident and competent, just to give us some kind of scope of the world out there?
Less than 10%, I would say.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
And to speak to that, because there's going to be a lot of people that are probably in my boat, and I think I said this to you on the first chat that we had together, I was like, I feel like a fucking kindergarten student when it comes to money. And it's in your head, you create this story of like everyone else has got it together when it comes to money. And I'm this little boy trying to make sense of money. And there's ego and there's shame and there's judgment that comes with that. And for some people, it feels like that could become paralyzing for them to not even step into the arena. Is that what you've experienced as well?
Yeah, it happens all the time, particularly for men. There's a lot of, you know, societal beliefs around what makes a good man. And there's a big focus on being a provider and being financially astute. And again, you know, as much as the girls, we're all growing up without really great education in this arena. And so there's a lot of shame. And then, you know, you get the bravado because everyone's kind of pretending that they've got it all figured out, but they're just bumbling through as best they can as the next one. And often the things that are most attractive, the not so sound money strategies, the get rich quick schemes and the really high risk strategies, which can on occasion result in significant wealth, but more often than not result in you losing money and losing more money than you originally started with. So yeah, and because of all of this and this idea, it's just me, I'm the only one that this is happening to, keeps people from talking about money, from learning about money, from taking steps to build those skills, and keeps them stuck in that cycle of not having financial well-being, not being able to meet their day-to-day, spending more than they earn, not being able to grow their wealth for the future. And it's a, it's a form of self-harm in a way. I really try to reframe good financial habits as a form of self-care, because having good financial well-being is just important as having good physical well-being and mental well-being and social connection and all of those things, because you can do as much yoga and meditation and interval training as you like, but if you have financial stress, that's going to be affecting your relationships, your health, your mental state. So it's a really essential life skill, and there's no shame in learning how to do it. You're not born with money skills. Why wouldn't you go and get educated? Why wouldn't you find a coach or a mentor in this space? It's only going to make life better.
So when I was listening to Morgan's stuff, I was fascinated by his whole beliefs and I guess research around status and how that constantly is impacting how we spend money and keeping up with the Joneses. And I would say there's different pockets of Australia where that is more pronounced, having lived in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and different spots around Australia. I would say that is as strong in Sydney as anywhere. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the catalyst for, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably about a 60-year window of where it appears are just spending at a ridiculous rate, and one that we often can't keep up with. Like, what are the pieces that have caused this pattern or this societal norm of spending beyond our means, do you think?
The arrival of credit was a big one.
So when did that start?
I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say like turn of the 20th century.
Gotcha. Yep.
Is where it became more readily available. So once upon a time, if someone was wealthy, they paid for everything with cash. So if you saw someone, driving a fancy car, wearing really flash clothes, living in a big house, they would have had to have paid for it with actual money. The arrival and the prevalence of credit, being able to buy something now and pay for it later, really fueled consumerism, because you didn't have to wait. You didn't have to save up. It's not explicitly just that. Obviously, things like the proliferation of media and information being more readily available and being able to see how other people live, has also enhanced that. But yeah, credit's been a big one because it's so easy to access. Often you're getting approved for it when perhaps it's not the best thing for you to have access to. And it means that you can spend more than you earn, which keeps you trapped in a cycle of debt because you're always paying for that past experience. And more often than not, credit can be a good thing, particularly when you're using it to buy things that go up in value, such as property and shares in companies and things like that. But for a lot of people, they're buying things that go down in value once you purchase them, that you're consuming it. So you drove it, you wore it, you went there, you ate it, you drank it, you consumed it in some way. And that's not a good use of credit because it's not enhancing your financial position. And it's bloody expensive as well.
True that. Yeah. What have you noticed on a personal level about your relationship to money and assets and liabilities as you've become more competent, both financially, but also from a mental and the human component? What have you noticed around your transition?
Yeah. So I grew up on a sheep and cattle station in northwestern Queensland, and my very early memories of money was always about saving for the not so rainy day, because as farmers, if it didn't rain, there wasn't grass, our livestock, couldn't eat and grow fat, and we wouldn't sell them and make lots of money. So you would always be keeping some cash in reserve so that you could see out those bad years and make it through to the good years. So that made me very conservative, which in a way has been a positive thing. I've always been a good saver and careful with money, but it's also meant that I have been very risk averse. I haven't wanted to spend money. I haven't felt confident investing money. I've probably been a little bit too serious in a lot of ways. When a lot of friends were just, saying YOLO and heading to Europe, I was like, oh no, I'm going to keep working and building up that home deposit and blah, blah, blah. If I had my time again, I might have been a little bit more relaxed around it and a little bit more balanced in my approach. So that's something that's changed over the years. And a big catalyst for that was working in finance and really learning around not just how to make money, not just how to keep money and save it, but actually how to grow it and learning how to invest with a strategic goals-based strategy. So not just like randomly throwing money into some share that I thought looked good, but having, a strategic goal of like, okay, I want to have $120,000 in savings as a home deposit in 6 years' time. I'm going to invest it in this balanced fund, which is going to be exposed to these assets, and I'm going to contribute this amount every month, and I will pretty much guarantee that I'll have my 120,000 by my due date. So learning how to do that was really big. The next big junction was trusting my own abilities to work for myself. So I started full-time working for myself just 12 months ago. And prior to that, I'd always had my coaching business as a side hustle. And I'd really just treated it like a side hustle. Like I was like, oh, it's this thing I do for fun. It doesn't matter if it makes that much money or not. It's a passion project. Even though it did quite well financially, I just really played small. And then my executive role, so I had like a chief revenue officer role of a finance company. The company got acquired, my role got made redundant, and I immediately was like, I need my salary. I need that security. I need to be the one paying the bills. Like if I don't have this job, my whole family is going to be at risk. Like these are the narratives that are going on in my head. So I immediately started looking for new executive roles, even though it was weighing so heavily on my soul because those roles are 24/7. You are always on. And your time is not your own. And there's a lot of ego that goes with the job title and the position. And, I was a little bit addicted to that too. But it's not what I wanted to do. It's not the way I wanted to be spending my time. It didn't support the way I wanted to parent. And anyway, my husband's like, why don't you actually just park job hunting for a couple of months, see what happens if you really focused on your business? And literally in my head, my brain was going, no, because you'll make no money and then they'll take the house. And it was like such an illogical thought. For so many reasons. One, I had an established business. Two, we had so much money in the offset account that I could literally not make money for 5 years and no one's taking the house. Two, it's me. Like if that was the case, I'd just go get a job. But it's funny how our emotions can override our logic. And so it wasn't until I got that, encouragement from my husband and I kind of put some parameters and I really looked just at the numbers and realized yeah, Bets, you could literally fail for 5 years and still be financially okay. Chill out. So I coached myself through that. I had the best time and my business has thrived. I was like $11,000 short of replacing my corporate salary last year, which blew my mind for my first year of business. And I actually get to do something I love. And I have the most amazing clients and the most amazing partnerships. But yeah, fear probably would have kept me from that if it wasn't for the support I had around me. And it wasn't a logical fear. It was completely emotional. So, even with all the knowledge that I have, I still have to mindfully practice becoming the person that I want to be when it comes to money and finances.
One thing that you said there, I think speaks so well to people and money is emotions override logic and knowledge.
All the time.
You could easily take, and again, I'm speaking out of place here because I still am very green when it comes to money, but you could easily take Warren Buffett's get greedy when there's blood on the streets and
people are fearful.
People are fearful and be fearful when people are greedy. like, I think most people that I've spoken to have heard that at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
And yet everyone still shits the bed from an emotion point of view when there's blood on the streets.
Mm.
That must be, and this is why I think your work is so important, because the average money person isn't bringing the human component and the emotional component into decision making.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this myth that gets kind of like just pushed all the time by financial circles that money is about math and logic and we all behave logically. And we all know that that's not the truth, but it's that speaking to the emotional behavioral side of money isn't something that most financial professionals are trained to do nor are comfortable doing. It's why I practice as a financial coach, because I've trained as a financial advisor. I can tell you how to construct a portfolio and analyze investments. But my observation is that until we create awareness around what our money patterns, beliefs, and behaviors are, which are largely subconscious, and harmonize that so that it is working for us, not against us, it doesn't matter if I give you the most creme de la creme, beautiful financial plan. It's not going to work for you because it's not addressing the behavioral sides and it's not empowering you either. It's, it's kind of like giving you a recipe and going, yeah, good luck, bake the cake. Like, what could go wrong? And it's just not equipping you for success. So yeah, money's so emotional because it's so essential for our survival. Like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it
the base.
Goes up from, money's not on there. And it's a great oversight, in my opinion, because once we came out of being hunters and gatherers and moved into organized society, we created money as our currency for paying for goods and services and created it to be this essential thing for our safety, for our health and well-being. And so to not acknowledge the role that it plays and the influence that it has and how that drives emotional responses is, like I said, a big oversight. It's not math. It's not logic. It's math, logic, and emotion all in one.
I was listening to Shani and I drove to Melbourne and then back, so we had plenty of time to listen to podcasts. And I was listening to Tom Bilyeu talk to Morgan Housel. And Tom, for those that don't know, started Quest Nutrition, has a podcast called Impact Theory. He's like a genius, but he's one of the very few people, like Tom, even though he's very aware, can't understand how someone can just have a equation and then execute. Like, he's the most logical person. He doesn't understand addictions. He doesn't understand how emotions play a role. He's like, oh, give me an equation and I'll implement. I'm like, you, my friend, have a skill that is very rare. Just execute on exactly everything. He just doesn't have the emotional component. Like, it's amazing. And it's actually one of my goals this year to be more like Tom in my own way. And not have emotions and, limiting beliefs, etc., drive many of my patterns. Based on what you've seen, again, with the people that you've worked in, the friendships that you've got, how many people have got this skill that Tom's got where they can just execute from a logical place and never fall off the bandwagon from a self-sabotage, limiting belief, emotional state, whatever it might be? What's the percentage of people that fall into Tom's category?
Oh, I would say less than one. But I mean, Tom is either one of two people. He's either probably on some sort of spectrum, like to be able to just naturally do that. His brain's going to be wired quite differently to the average bear. Or he has a very strong practice in calming his nervous system and accessing his logical brain.
I feel like he's a bit of both. But again, the way that he talks about, and I totally get it as well, but like the way that he talks about, oh yeah, I'll just execute on that. I'm like, that is an amazing skill. He has the world's best minds on his podcast, and they're still like, oh dude, that's great that it's as easy for you. But the majority of like, it just is. That's how it works. So it's good to hear from your side of things that he falls into the top 1%, which we probably Or do you based on the results he gets?
Don't like measure yourself against him and go, oh, I'm not good enough. It's like he's either got an extraordinary wiring of his brain or a really strong practice, because our brains have three components. We've got the primal part, the emotional part, and our logical part. And we spend about 70% in the emotional, 20% in the primal, which is like wired for desire and driven by fear, and then only 5% in our logical brain. Our logical brain's the most advanced. It's responsible for our language and decision-making and all of that, but it's underdeveloped and it's difficult to access if you're in a state of fear or emotion. And like I said, we're spending a good 95% in those other two. So to practice being able to do what he does, you need to find ways to access that part of your brain, and that requires a calm nervous system. So what I equip so many of my clients with is practices around how to, acknowledge and observe what's going on and have awareness, because that's the starting point. But then two, how to override that, how to reframe that and build that new neural pathway that when whatever the stimulant or the trigger is that comes in, they can respond in a way that they wish to, not the way that they default to. And that's, you wouldn't think about that with money practices, but it's essential. It's an essential skill. So, for example, it could be you've had a really bad day and your default is to jump onto your phone and self-soothe through shopping because that feels fun. We get a hit of dopamine and stuff. And it's like when you feel that urge going, okay, I need to pause. What do I really need to be addressing? What's an alternative practice that's going to give me that feeling without, sabotaging my financial goals? That's a super simple one, but it's the key message is that to be able to execute logically all the time, you need a calm nervous system and you need ways to access that and practice that.
Something as simple as that, also not so simple as a breathwork facilitator, is learning to re-regulate your nervous system. But like, if you went to a financial advisor and their first session was, dude, your nervous system's all over the place, and until you can regulate it, you're not going to be in control of your fight. Like, what the fuck? That's groundbreaking.
Yeah, you'd be like,
we're not even going to talk about money today. We're going to talk about how dysregulated you are and how you're making poor decisions from that place. Like, that is mind-blowing, full stop. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Your predictions for 2024?
Around money?
Yeah. Money, the world. What would you be doing as a wizard financially in 2024?
Oh, like my money stuff stays the same year on year. And I would just be encouraging people to do the same things year on year. Like the world's going to happen around you. But I think one of the most powerful things you can do when it comes to money is work out what the fuck you want.
Really good question.
What do you want? What do you want life to look like? What kind of relationships, health, what kind of work do you want to do? What kind of personal development do you want to prioritize? What's a living environment that you want to look like? Articulating that as goals. And for when it comes to money goals, it's really important to state like what it is that you want, how much money you're going to need to make it happen, and by when. If you have those three components, you can then develop a strategy, which is really easy to make it happen around what income, what investment strategy, how much, how often, and all of that. I think one of the biggest game changers for my husband and I in terms of our happiness, as well as our finances, was getting really clear on what we wanted life to look like through all of those components, and then just relentlessly pursuing that. And what I've noticed is that we don't have the same angst and we don't have the same responses to other people's decisions, whether that's good fortune or crazy, because we're just like, we're on our own path and we're doing our thing. And when you're living the life that you really desire and you're really clear that this is mine, it's not what I feel like I should be doing or what I feel like I should be pursuing. It's like, no, these are the things that I know to make me feel really happy. then you're not that bothered by what everyone else is up to, or if they've got a fancier car or a bigger house, or if they went on a holiday. Like, you're happy for them and you're excited for them, but you don't have that reaction or emotional response there. And, for us, big things that were important to us was our health, our relationship, like making sure that we still wanted to shag each other after 10 years.
That's important. That's a big one.
Yeah. That our kids were cared for, that they grew up in a loving home with two parents who were present, they had access to good quality education and food, and then just having agency over our time. And anything that, and we define it like, we still want nice things. Don't you worry. We still want those things. But it wasn't like, oh, I need this car and I need to live in this suburb and I need to earn X amount of dollars. It was like, very much like, these are the components of a life well lived. This is what we need to make it happen. And this is how we're going to do it. And anything that doesn't align to that, it's not on the card. It's not important.
What you said there should not be underestimated. And working with couples as one of the things from a coaching point of view, one of the things that I've noticed, and I can only assume this is really common in your world, and even that example, is sometimes you don't have money problems, but you've actually got values problems, e.g. you have different values and how you want to kind of spend your money. So, for example, one person might want to live a really simple life and save for retirement. The other person might want to kind of, or value fun, adventure, whatever it might be, higher.
Yeah.
And it can be really easy to wrong the other person as opposed to understanding and respecting their value hierarchy and being able to communicate, where is the kind of happy medium between. Is that a common issue amongst couples that you work with?
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, we're sort of role modeled that love and relationships is around, you meet someone and you're attracted and you like doing the same activities, and then, you go and live this great life together. A lot of it though is like all these things that you don't talk about around, like, what kind of life do you want to live? What kind of, do you want kids? What kind of parent do you want to be? What does work look like for you? How do you want to spend your time? What are your values? And a lot of us couldn't even articulate what our values are. And so then we're so vulnerable to the influence of others and what we see looking attractive and good and fun and fancy. We're also operating from a lot of assumptions around who our partner is. Like, who are we to think we know our partner? Like, we can know them pretty well, but I'm always learning about my husband. I expect to still be learning about him when I'm 85 and being like, oh, fuck. And I think where love often dies is that we stop being curious about the person that we've partnered with. We think we know everything there is to know and exactly how they're going to respond. And that's not exciting or attractive. And, yeah. So, yeah, it's very common that there's a lot of unspoken needs, wants, desires. There's a lot of subconscious needs, wants, desires, and there's a lot of assumption going by. And it's just a recipe for challenges. And, whilst I never promise to be able to reveal all those things between two partners, I certainly can equip them with tools to navigate those conversations and discover those things about each other, and then align on a plan together that's going to set them up for a much healthier, more harmonious, more well-aligned relationship. Because I don't want money to be an unnecessary stress in couples' relationships. Some things are outside of your control, like, job losses and illness and stuff. And that's something you really want to band together and work through. But for most of it, you should be able to talk about it. You should be able to come up with a plan. You should be able to work as a team if you got the right skills and support.
Having those skills and support is a big piece. So one thing you mentioned before, I can't remember the exact language you used, but it was along the lines of, my money choices are pretty boring. Morgan said the same thing. Ramit said the same thing. And I can only assume, again, if we come to the emotional component, that's not very exciting for this, compared to 2 years ago when everyone was talking about this crypto that was booming and then crashed. Do you find yourself literally just chipping away at a 10, 20, 30-year plan that is set up for, monthly direct debit and it's just in the background. Is that kind of how you play the money game? Because it seems to be a common thread amongst
common
the
theme.
3 or 4 voices that I listen to.
And I'm sorry, I actually didn't make any predictions for you, so I didn't answer your question earlier.
You sidetracked the question.
Yeah, but so I am boringly consistent when it comes to money. So, I always spend less than I earn. I always am prioritizing investing money into assets that are going to go up in value over time. And, we do have excitement in our financial world in terms of we both run our own businesses. That's a pretty risky endeavor. If it all goes well, we could stand to make a lot of money, but there's a high probability that we might not be successful and it comes with risk. So when it comes to our personal finances, because we've got that kind of risk over there, we just do boring things. We pay off our house and we invest in our superannuation, which is our retirement savings, and we invest in a share portfolio outside of that. And, things like cryptocurrencies and stuff, I would only be investing that with money that I could afford to lose. In terms of what would that portfolio look like? It would be like a tiny satellite orbiting my global investment strategy, if that makes sense. It would just be for play and enjoyment. And to be honest, my husband has some shares where he's directly buying shares in companies that he thinks are really interesting, but it's less than 5%, or even probably less than 3% of our total wealth is put to those more risky endeavors. And so I guess what we're all talking to is that the principles of wealth are really simple. It's doing the things that I've just described consistently and over a long period of time. And the compound effect of that is profound. And it's not risky. It's not requiring some extraordinary thing to happen. It's just an inevitable strategy that we will get wealthier. And I'm cool. I like predictability. I mean, I like fun and adventure too, but when it comes to wealth, I'm pretty happy with predictability on that front. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they don't understand what they're risking or how risky a lot of the strategies that they are employing are, and don't really assess the decision and fully sign up for that risk. Because I've got lots of clients that do way more risky things with their money. Some of them are eyes wide open about it. They're yeah, I know that I'm literally putting it all on black basically and hoping that black comes up. But so many of them don't realize that that's what they're doing. And it's about, again, teaching them the foundational concepts of wealth creation, enabling them to make informed choices and understand the upside, which everyone looks at, the shiny, it goes well, but also the downside. What happens if this doesn't pan out the way that you expected? Yeah, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I'm all about get rich slow. It's the way to do it.
If there was one line that could be used across your school of thought, Remit's and Morgan's, it would be consistently boring when it comes to investing, which I've finally come to terms with that and got my head around that.
Yeah.
But
welcome to the club.
Thanks for opening the door. It's wild, isn't it? Because that, imagine as we put this podcast out, and I call this podcast Being Consistently Boring with Spending by Betsy. I'm probably not going to get a huge amount of people listening to it.
Everyone's
But if we said the latest crypto injection that could make $1 million tomorrow morning, is it frustrating for you? If I think about the health, if I refer that back to, say, my old world of the health and fitness, I could simplify it. And there's a couple of people on social media who do this really well. Calories in versus calories out, generally speaking, and you're probably going to lose weight. But you could say that to people till they're till you're black and blue in the face and they're still looking at the next fad. That seems like the money version. Yeah,
our brains are wired for instant gratification. And what I'm describing isn't instant, it's delayed. And we just we're just not wired to like that. We want it to happen now. It happened yesterday, ideally. So like, I don't get frustrated by it. I just want to help people understand it and give them the tools to make doing it easy. So like, I've got very clear goals. I've got a really great money management framework where my money kind of just happens on autopilot. I know that based on the way that I've invested, I can pretty much predict where my finances are going to be, give or take, at any point in time. And then I'm open to opportunity as well. Things like, I think I was telling you before we got on the podcast that we impulse purchased a new home just before Christmas. But it was, an opportunity came along. We came into some good fortune. It meant that we could upgrade to the forever home and we jumped on it. So, it's like having a good plan with flex. And again, like our plan just aligns so well to our priorities in life around work, family, relationship, health. And so it's exciting to me. I don't get really distracted by all the like sparkly things because I'm like, no, man, I got this plan and it's going to deliver me the goods. Like I don't need to do anything different. I'm on track.
That in
I think
itself
that's the power.
That's people need to listen to that again because I think that's heavily underrated. And you said something along the lines earlier. If you have a plan and you know your values and there's purpose and meaning in those two, you'll be amazed how that white noise out there just disappears because you're like, cool, do what you want, but this isn't aligned with me. But if you don't have, if you're not grounded in a plan and you're not grounded in your values, then you might look up more often and get drawn into society's values or your friends' like that is heavily underrated. I reckon what you just said.
Yeah. I can't emphasize that enough. Like having a really strong why is everything. And so when I'm like working with clients, one of the things that we do is like, okay, you've got this goal, but why? Like, what does it mean to you? Why does this matter? How's it going to affect your life? Because, just saying like, oh, I want to save money. Okay, cool. Like how much? $1 by when? Why? Like, why would you save when you could spend? Where if it's like, and I'll just pick a boring goal, which isn't that boring, but it's like, okay, I want to save 20,000 to have an emergency savings so that no matter what life throws at me, I can handle it with ease and grace and no stress. That's a compelling reason to put money aside each month because you're like, yeah, I just want to be able to handle shit like a boss and I don't want to be thrown off course when something else happens to me. Cool. And that's, like I said, I feel like that's like a boring-ish goal. Like you can have way more exciting goals than that, but really anchoring what you're doing to a why you're doing it will keep you on track. And, as you say, drown out the white noise, drown out the distractions because you have something that's better than what's on offer.
I know you're going on leave soon, but for those that want to find out more about you, the work that you do, and I highly suggest working with her, and I can speak obviously firsthand to that as Shani and I have worked with Betsy. Where do people find out about you, your work, or your magic?
Best place is my website, which is the Inner Money Journey. I've also got a personal website, which is just betsywestcott.com. So you can find me at either of those. On Instagram at Betsy Westcott, LinkedIn, because I'm still a slight corporate dork. I'm there at Betsy Westcott. And then you can sometimes catch me on sorry, not the morning show, wrong one. On what I can't
Today Show?
The Today Show. Is it the morning show? God, why am I having a mental?
I think it is the morning show.
Baby brain. Yeah, it is the morning show. Goodness me. Like I'm going to blame baby brain for that one. Thanks. So you can catch me on there, often talking about finance. I've got an online course I do with Koshi around how to manage financial stress. And I'm launching my new Financially Fit and a Little Bit Fabulous boot camp, which will be available whilst I am not personally available for one-on-one coaching while I welcome baby number 2 into the world. So yeah, so there are all the ways you can find me, but and I hope you do, because I just want everyone to really practice and prioritize financial well-being. It is going to change your life in so many ways. And it's so easy and achievable if you just give it a little bit of attention and care.
I completely agree. And even going back to what you said much earlier, I wouldn't say I'm like, oh yeah, I would say I'm excited about money now, but it's, and I know so many people that aren't excited about money because of the overwhelm, because of the judgment, the fear, the stories that come up with that. And again, to reinforce what I've said 64,000 times in today's episode, you are one of the few people who brings the human component to money. And for that reason, you will change a lot of lives, whether you're online or whether you're taking some time away from being online and bringing a baby with your programs. But yeah, again, guys, highly suggest Betsy's work. She's a genius. Get around her.
Thank you. And can we just celebrate how excited you are about money now?
I know.
Big change. Yay.
Guys, don't make it taboo. It doesn't have to be taboo. Let's talk about it anytime.
No, be like Blake.
You're a legend.
Thanks
Thanks for coming on,
having me.
Betsy. Cheers.